Alright, so this is a video on how to find slope between 2 points. So the question is going to say, what's the slope of the line that passes through -2, 1 and -1, 5? Here is your formula for slope. Remember, it's m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So the first thing you have to do is to label your x1 and your y1s and your x2 and y2s. So when you do that, the first number you see is your x1, and this is your y1, x2, and y2. So now you're just going to substitute into that formula. So I'm going to start with y2, which was a 5. So I write 5, and then you're always going to have a minus sign. Then my y1 was just a 1. Okay, so you're just doing 5 minus 1. Then you're going to start with your x2, which was -1. Write your minus sign. And then x2 was -2. Okay? So it is okay if you have minus and negative, but what we need to do is turn that into a plus sign. Because you know when you have two negatives, that actually becomes a plus. So then you're going to add or subtract the top and get 5 minus 1 is a 4. We would now do -1 plus 2 and get a 1. And I know 4 over 1 is just a 4. So the slope of that line would be a 4. Okay? So let me do number 2 with you, and then I will let you be free to try 3 and 4. Okay, so first thing, label your points. x1, y1, x2, y2. And now plug them in the formula. So I'm going to start with y2, which was 3. So 3, and then your minus sign. Your y1 was -1. And then I would do x2, which is -2. Your minus sign is always there. And then your x1 is 4. Okay? If you have two negatives, remember that becomes a plus. So that problem is now 3 plus 1, which is 4, over -2 minus 4, which is -6. Okay? But I can reduce 4 over 6. I know they're both divisible by 2. So I'm going to divide the top by a 2 and divide the bottom by a 2. So I would get 2 over -3. And so that's my slope. It could also be written -2 over 3. Okay? So that would be a negative slope. And the reason we keep it in a fraction form is because slope is a rise over run ratio, and so you have to leave it in a fraction form. Okay? So no decimals with slope. So why don't you try 3 and 4 on your own, and then I'll put up my answers. So press pause. For number 3, I got 2, or you could leave it as 2 over 1, it's up to you. But you would do 2 minus -6, which we know this becomes a big plus sign. And that's why I did 2 plus 6 to get an 8. Oh, 3 minus 1. That should be a 2. I messed up. That should be a 2, which would be 4. Or 4 over 1. So sorry, you should have got 4 or 4 over 1 because 8 divided by 2 is a 4. On the fourth one, same thing, I had minus and negative twice, so I made those into a plus sign. And so -2 plus a 2 was a 0. And then 1 plus 3 was a 4. 0 divided by 4 is 0. When it has a slope of 0, that's going to be a horizontal line. Okay, so 0 slope is going to be horizontal. Okay, so that's how you find slope between 2 points. Now we're going to turn the page and look at tables. So how you determine slope from tables is like we've done in the past. So the first thing you need to do is figure out what number they are adding by. And to do that, you can do the bottom number minus the one before it. So you could do 5 minus 3 and get 2. So they are adding 2 each time. You can double check that here. 1 plus 2 is a 3. So they were adding by 2 on the right side. I do have to check the left side. So here they were just adding 1 and adding 1. So in a table, your formula is change in y over change in x. And so your change in y was a 2, and your change in y was a 1. So you could leave it as 2 over 1, or you could just say 2. So the slope of that table would be a 2. Okay? So let's try number 2. I know they are going further down, so they're subtracting. But if you wanted to figure it out, you can always do the one before it, take away the one before it, and -5 minus -4, they're taking away 1 each time. So they're going down by 1 on the y side. On the right side, how do you get from a 1 to a 3? You're going to add 2. 3 to a 5, you're going to add 2. So what you have to do is change in y over change in x. And the change in the y were -1. The change in the x side was a 2. So your slope would be a -1/2. Okay, remember we leave those in fraction forms. Alright. Let's look at number 3 together, and I'll let you try 4 on your own. How do you go from a -6 to a -9? Well, they're going further down, so they're subtracting 3 each time. But when you look right here, they are not subtracting 3 each time, because the difference between a 9 and a 15 is 6. So they subtracted 6 here. Okay, let's check it here. 21 and the 15 would also be subtracting a 6. So let's check the right or the left side to see kind of why that happened. So here they just went up by a 1, but then here you notice they went up by a 2 and then up by a 2. So if your rate of change isn't the same each time, you get to pick your favorite 2 points. So I could pick these 2 points right here, for example, and I would say the change in y over change in x would be -3 over 1, or just -3. Okay, if you happen to pick maybe these 2 points, your change in x was your change in y was a -6, and your change in x was a 2. And we know that -6 divided by 2 is still a -3. So you get the same answer, just kind of your pick of which one you wanted to do. So if they go up by different amounts, pick your favorite 2 numbers, and that's going to be the rate of change. So why don't you try number 4 on your own and press pause, and then we'll go over it. So I got 3 over 2 for my slope. I saw that the right side was adding 3 each time, the left side was adding 2 each time, so I did change in y over change in x and got 3 over a 2. That fraction cannot be simplified, so my answer would be 3 over 2. Okay, so that is how you find rate of change from a table. Let's look at a graph now. So examples of graph. To find rate of change, what you would do is rise over run. So that is how far up or down you go versus left or right. So the first thing you have to do is pick 2 points that cross nicely. How you would do that is this point does not cross nicely, but this point right here crosses both that grid very nice. So I would put a point right there, and then I will go and try to find another point that crosses nicely, for example here. And then you could have also picked this point down here. So the first thing is notice how this line goes down from left to right, so you know the slope is going to be negative. Okay, but you have to do a little slope triangle, and how you would do that is you kind of connect the points from left to right and make a little triangle, and then you need to count. So this point went down 1, 2, 3. So I went down 3. And then I went to the positive direction 1, so that'd be a plus 1. And so the rise would be a -3. The run would be a 1. So your answer would be the slope is -3. You could also say -3 over 1. You could also do your slope triangle the other way. And for example, make a triangle like this. And you see that you went up 1, 2, 3. So you went up, so that's a positive 3. But then if you go left 1, that's going to be a negative 1. So you could have also got 3 over negative 1, which is the same as a negative 3. So that is how you would find slope. So let's look over here on number 2. I need to find 2 points that cross nicely. Here is 1 point. Here's a point. And then there's also a point down here. So when you look from left to right, you can notice that that line is going up. So you know that slope is going to be positive. So now you just need to make your slope triangle. So pick any point and then kind of draw an up and down line to connect them. And then I'm going to start at the lowest point. So I went up 1, 2, 3. And then I went over 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so rise over run would be 3 over 4. Okay, let me show you a different way. You could also start at this top point over here and make a slope triangle like this. So you could go like that. And for example, if you started at this point, you went down 1, 2, 3. And if you go down, that's negative 3. And then you would go right 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you, or left, sorry. And if you go left, that's negative. So same thing, you'd have rise, which was negative 3 over negative 4. And we know that 2 negatives make a positive, and that's why the answer is 3 over 4. So no matter which way you make your slope triangle, you will still get the same answer. Okay, but to double check yourself, as you know, this is a positive number because the line is going up. So I want you to try these two on your own. So press pause, and then I will go over the answer. I got negative 1/2 for the number 3, and then I got 2 or 2 over 1 for number 4. I found some points that crossed nicely, and then I used this slope triangle, for example. I started at this point and I went down 1, so negative 1, and then right 2, so positive 2, and then rise over run, so negative 1/2. I know that's right because that line is going down, so it should be negative. Over here I picked these points, and then I started at the bottom point and went up 2 over 1, so my slope would be a 2 over 1 or just a 2. I know that answer seems right because my line is going up and those numbers are positive. Okay, so that is how you find slope from a graph. So we've done points, graphs, and tables. So now let's practice on some IXL. So finding the slope from a graph is S2, slope from 2 points is S3, and then if you go back to 8th grade, they have finding rate of change from a table. Okay, so you should have already done S1 from Friday, but let's try these couple for rate of change practice. Thank you for watching.